Hi, everyone. Welcome back to A Billion Realities. Our next guest today on the show is the amazing and empowered Jen Garcia, who is the host of the hit show on her experience in a long-term relationship with a narcissist. She will share an incredible amount of insight and red flags, manipulation, and emotional and mental anguish that narcissistic abuse can cause. Hi, Jen. Welcome to the show.
Hi, thank you so much. I'm so glad to be here.
That's amazing. I'm really happy that you're willing to share your story to shed some light on such a heavy topic, actually. So you're located, yeah. So you're out in Vegas, right?
Yes, I am. I relocated about 2 years ago or so.
All right, and you're from New York, right?
Yes, New York. Born and raised in New York.
Amazing. How's that transition for you been?
It was a bit of a culture shock, but I really needed it. I was trying to, move somewhere slower pace, longer summers, better weather. So I appreciate the differences greatly. I felt like I was getting burnt out in New York, so I needed, something a little more muted.
I can totally relate to that. I grew up in upstate a little bit, like 2 hours from the city, and then I moved to Manhattan when I was 18. I lived there for a few years. I lived in Brooklyn for a bit, and I was burnt out after just a few years. So you lasted a long time. That's great. Well, I'm glad you're enjoying Vegas.
Yeah. Thank you. I really am. I mean, despite the current environment. But, I really do enjoy it here. I love it here.
That's amazing. I know everything is really stressful right at the moment with the Rona. But
yes, the Rona and the quarantine.
Exactly. I'm actually in Serbia, so we've been under curfew. Yeah, like I said, I'm from New York, but I've been here for about 7.5 years. And we're under like a curfew, so 5 o'clock is our curfew still.
How's it out in Serbia?
It's different, I'm used to it now, but it's interesting. It's a good place though. Right now, actually, it's a good place to be under the circumstances because we don't have the craze of everybody buying everything from the stores and panicking. Like, we don't have that here. They've been through so many wars already that they don't panic about this kind of not on that level.
Like, a flu 2.0. Okay.
Yeah,
right.
Exactly. Pretty much, But, so I'm excited to talk to you about this. So about narcissism specifically. So you had an 11-year relationship with a narcissist, correct?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And so
it was 11 long years.
I bet. So what was the beginning of that relationship like?
The beginning was, it was so unorthodox and so unbelievable. But I'm going to be, full disclosure, I'm going to be completely candid, right?
Okay.
Very, very, very fairy tale. Like, we actually met on Facebook, and we were, corresponding via Facebook inbox for a long time, and then we graduated from that to emails. This was back when I still had a Yahoo email address, just to give you how long ago it was. Okay. And then we went from, emailing to, it's like, okay, do you think it's time we give each other our phone numbers? And we were kind of like, yeah, we both agreed. And then we went from, Facebook inbox to emailing to actually calling each other. The beginning, like I said, this is going to be a very bizarre story because the very, very first time he ever called me, we were on the phone, I would say, maybe 16 or 17 hours straight.
Wow.
Yeah, like 16 or 17 hours straight. I mean, nonstop. Like, we saw the sun go down and then come up and then evening hit again. So, that was our very first encounter on a telephone, voice to voice.
That's intense.
And it was very, very intense. And he asked to marry me during that conversation.
Before meeting?
Before meeting.
Wow. Okay. Interesting.
Yeah. You see, I'm telling you, this is like, and I've studied a lot about narcissism, and even in my studies, I find that, you know, my ex is one of the worst cases that I've seen or even read about. So it was very intense. He is full throttle. He's very, very calculating. You know, looking back now, you know, looking back now, I'm like, okay, that phone call, you know, 16, 17 hours in was a very calculated grooming, but it was just a fast speed grooming where the average narcissist, you know, dates and takes you out and does the love bombing. But, you know, my ex did it all on the phone within 16, 17 hours and literally asked me to marry him during that telephone conversation.
I can't say I'm surprised, and there's definitely that spectrum scale when it comes to narcissism. So I love that you pointed out that this was like one of the more extreme cases, because it can absolutely vary accordingly. So so how did you guys end up meeting, and how did that go?
Okay, so after that phone conversation, we continued to, you know, speak on the phone for months. Back then, you know, like things like WhatsApp and FaceTime weren't popular, so we weren't even seeing each other, you know what I mean, face to face. It was all, you know, telephone conversations and or emails and things like that. So then he kept pressuring me. I had my own apartment in New York, and he kept pressuring me to move out to LA with him. I had never done anything like that, and I didn't see him in person, even though I thought I was fully in love, right? But I didn't want to leave the security of my apartment, and he took huge issue with that, huge issue. He was like, you know, I feel like you're not trusting me, and if you really loved me and you trusted me, you would let everything go for me. You know, anyone who knows about narcissism knows there's a lot of, you know, guilt tripping, and it's like, why are you doing this to me? I'm giving you everything. Why are you treating me this way, right? So I didn't want to let go of my apartment. Luckily for me, at the time, the apartment I was staying in, my dad owned the building. It was a small apartment building, probably 10 apartments or so. So I had the flexibility to leave the apartment, you know, for a couple months or whatever, and then come back, right, without worrying about evictions or anything like that. So I told them, okay, I'll close up shop here, and I'll come out. So I packed like 3 giant suitcases with everything I damn near owned, aside from furniture, and I made the trip to LA. And our first day together was bizarre, because on top of it being awkward, because it's the first time I'm seeing him in person, I already thought I was in love. So I was like, okay, you know, seeing him in person is not going to be a big deal. So, you know, he was very romantic at first. He was like, oh, my God, I'm so glad you're here. He's unpacking my bag. He's unfolding my clothes and hanging them up, you know, in the closet. I mean, storybook. It was amazing.
Wow.
Later on in the evening, he's like, oh, hey, look, I'm going to cook. But I was like, okay, great. So we were eating dinner. And after dinner, he pulls out like a notebook and a pen, and he was like, so, you know, I wanted to get this out the way. I wanted to go over, like, how we're going to be splitting the bills here. So I was like,
oh, wow.
I was like, wow, okay, like, all right. And I was just, you know, here I am in this new environment. I'm 3,000 miles away from home. I'm like, you know, I'm taken aback, but I'm kind of like, let me just go with the flow. I don't really know what to say right now. I've never had this happen before. And I'm talking about an itemized list, like the groceries are going to be split this way. His children's activities he included me in that, like, well, I spend this amount in my children's activities. So, and I was like, what is going on, right?
Oh my God.
And so I was like, wow, I was like, we're gonna have to talk about this. I don't know if I'm, comfortable with this. Like, I'm just leaving my home that I'm used to, and I'm, I'm getting thrown into this thing that's going on, and I'm not, I haven't even met his children. I don't, what I mean? I don't,
Yeah.
And then I was like, okay. And then after that came the introduction to Scientology, because he's a Scientologist.
Oh, wow. Okay, there's a whole
Right.
other element here. Okay, this is getting interesting.
Yes. Yes. So he's a Scientologist, a devout Scientologist. And I'm not the most religious person, as you know, right?
Right. I can relate.
I am not religious, but with that said, I know religion is necessary for certain people, and also I'm willing to listen, right? I'm not one of those people that's like, I'm a non-believer, so whatever you believe is absolutely, it's like, okay, I'll listen to you. Does that help you? And the person is like, yeah, this helps me. Okay, well, then good for you, but I don't want any parts of it, right?
Exactly.
So,
right.
With Scientology, he started opening books, so he was like, okay, he started telling me about L. Ron Hubbard, and he wanted to do these exercises with me. And mind you, this is all the same day. This isn't like over the span of days or weeks. So it's a lot of information to take in my first time seeing someone in person. So
Absolutely.
It was overwhelming. It was intimidating. It was scary. But I'm like, oh, my God, Jen, you flew 3,000 miles. Everything you own is in those 3 suitcases, and he hung them all up. So I'm kind of like in a way stuck here. And I didn't know anyone in LA at the time except for like one friend who had a bunch of roommates and who was out there trying to do the acting thing. So I didn't know anyone. I didn't know the land, the layout, the traffic, the street names. I just wasn't familiar with LA. So I was like, okay, let me just hear what this guy has to say, right? So then he wanted to do like these Scientology these exercises that they do, where they say a word and then you have to repeat the word. And I'm used to the game where it's like, when someone tells you, okay, I'm gonna say apple, tell me the first thing that comes to mind, right? I'm familiar with that game.
Yeah.
But this was weird. This was like, no, I say a word and you say the same word, and I'm like, okay. So he's like dog, and I'm like, dog. He's like cat. I'm like, okay, cat. So, I'm getting weirded out, right? So I was telling him, and then like my New York self kicked in, and I was like, I'm not interested in religion, but I'm definitely not interested in Scientology. Like, I heard some good things about it, but then, like, overall, it's just not something I want to do. So he got very upset. He got very upset. And he was like, oh, if we're going to be together, how can you not accept this? And blah, blah. And that was the first time I ever saw a different side. Up until that day, everything was perfect. When I tell you perfect, it was perfect. He was romantic. He was sweet. He'd listen. He was attentive. He asked questions like, how's your day going? That was my first glimpse of there's something behind this thing, this facade, this romance. That was my first experience. But, I stuck with it. And it got weirder and weirder and weirder. We had got into an argument. At this point, I don't remember what the argument was. But we got into an argument, and he left the apartment. And I was like, okay, I don't know what to do. I guess wait for him to come back. About 30 minutes later, he comes back with a man I've never seen before. I didn't know. And he's like, oh, I want you to leave my apartment. And I was like, excuse me? I want you to leave my apartment now. I want you to leave my apartment now. And this guy here, he's going to be a witness to you leaving because I don't want any problems. And then the guy looked kind of like, oh, what did I just get into? What is going on? I was like, are you serious right now? Like, I am 3,000 miles away from home. I don't know anyone. Even if I were to buy a flight, you know what I mean? I don't have a car. He was like, I don't care. I want you to leave my home. So I was like, wow. So I had to pack like my 2 giant suitcases, my carry bag, and I only knew that one friend in LA, and I called him and I was like, hey, his name is Teddy. I was like, Teddy, long story, I'm in LA. Now, of course, my friend is like, you're where? What are you doing out here? And I was like, Teddy, it's a long story, but you have to come pick me up from this address, blah, blah, blah. And he's like, what's going on? And I tried to explain to him. He was like, well, I'm going to go over there and see that dude. And I was like, no. I was like, just to get me out of here. So my friend came to pick me up, and he took me back to his house. And, of course, he has a bunch of roommates. But I was just glad to be, out of that situation. And he was like, what happened? Go on.
Mm-hmm. Oh, sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt. There was a little bit of a delay. So how long into the relationship did this happen?
A couple months.
Okay. Sorry. Continue.
Yeah. No, but when I was in LA, it was days. Like, this happened a couple days after having moved in with him. This happened just days after.
Oh, wow. That's what I was asking. Okay. Wow. That's unreal. So you're out. You're happy to be out of there. Did you bring your stuff?
Yeah, I brought all my stuff. And, so my friend was like, are you going to be good, whatever. So then I got a flight back home, and then, got the flight back home and brought all my stuff back to New York. Now, a normal, this is why I say baggage can be very damaging, right? Because a normal woman, right, who's had a very, normal upbringing, she has a better chance than I did. Because let me tell you, narcissists, they manipulate everybody. It doesn't matter your background, your tax bracket, what you look like. If you're a resource for them, they can manipulate you, right? But I'm just saying, in my situation, being that I grew up in a very dysfunctional home, and culturally, culture plays another part, because as a Latin woman and Puerto Rican, to be specific, we're very much door and put up, and men are a certain way. So no matter what happens, you have to be there for them, and sometimes they're unstable, and you have to, so, but a normal person, like the Jen of today, the way I am today, would have been all it took for me to never speak to you again, ever.
Right.
So I came back home, and then a couple days later, of course, the love bombing hits, which is basically, for anyone listening that's completely unaware, love bombing is basically when they reach out to you and you are the most amazing person on the planet, and they apologize and they'll give you anything, and they'll send you flowers, and they love you, and they're the most beautiful woman you've ever seen. And had it not been for all the bad things that happened in their life, they would have never done such an awful thing to you. And how can they make it up to you? And it's love, 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 love. And you're the most amazing woman I ever met. And you have to understand that, so there's a lot, and it's intense. It's intense.
It is.
It's intense. Right? So, of course, again, I'm talking about an 11-year relationship. So, yes, I went back many, 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 many times. Many, 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 many times. Mm-hmm. Because, when you hear the story, you're like, well, girl, geez, like, why would you put up with something like that? But narcissism is a slow drip. See, when someone comes in your life and they treat you badly, it's easy for women to exit like, oh my God, like, why would you be disrespectful? Why would you? It's easy to recognize and exit. But with narcissism, it's such a intense form of manipulation. It's a slow drip. It's a teeny. Yes. It's a tiny little drip. It's not as blatant as, hey, I just met you and I'm going to call you out of your name and I'm going to push you around and hit you. That's easy to recognize. It's like, whoa, hey, this doesn't feel good. So no. I don't want any parts of it. But with narcissism, there's so much love bombing and so many things that feel good that your brain, it's like, it forms a glitch in your brain because you're like, this man treats me so well. I have to be a selfish person to think that he messed up one time and I'm going to throw him away. He treats me so well.
They're master manipulators.
So, yes. So your brain starts doing a flip-flop. And that's what I try to explain to people, because people are like, well, if he treated you so badly, why did you stay, right? And I'm like, because you're simplifying it. He didn't treat me so badly. He treated me amazingly.
Yep.
And then the ways he treated me badly were a slow drip, and it breaks you down. And it breaks you down. And then, of course, you know, the way they manipulate, they start making you feel like you're the selfish, horrible, ugly monster that's not appreciating all that good stuff that they do.
Exactly. And it goes from one extreme to the next, sometimes hourly, daily.
Oh, yeah.
So it's like, and they give you the high. There's a dopamine rush with the love bombing. And then turn around once you let your guard down again, and they're bashing you, you know, character, emotionally. Yeah. So you're hitting it bang on. Okay. So tell us more.
Okay. So, through the love bombing, then there's the manipulation, and there's the breaking you down. Like, my God, I've never had, someone communicate so badly. Did you know how bad you communicate? These are things that I was being told, right? And I pride myself in being a good communicator. But he was always like, you communicate horribly. Like, you talk to people like this? Like, how have you gotten along through life? And then you start thinking, oh, my God, is it me? Like, maybe that's why we're not getting along. Maybe I can't communicate. Maybe I was, because, again, you're dealing with the man that treats you amazingly. The extremes are very, very important for people to understand. And it is like a light switch, right? Now, my narcissist in particular, like many, was a big-time womanizer. I didn't know that he was rotating women, right? So there's this thing called the discard with narcissists. And what they do is they literally discard you. They throw you away. And they throw you away after they treated you very well. So it leaves you in a state of, oh, my God, what did I do? I mean, this man is amazing. What did I do to get thrown away? Why am I not worthy of being loved by him continuously? What did I do? And they do it abruptly. It's not even like a conversation. Like, he would disappear. He would disappear for like a month, or he would disappear for weeks. And I would just be left, in shambles. I'd be calling and calling and calling him. I'd be texting him, no answer. I'm talking about radio silent.
Yep.
Like, I would
it's
think
a mind fuck.
Yes. I would be thinking, is he dead? You go through phases. Is he dead? Am I bad? Am I wrong to be thinking if he's with another woman? What did I do? Is it something I said? You start looking at your text messages. Is something is he just sick of me now? And then, a month would pass, and then now today I know that he was just rotating us. He was rotating women. So he'd be with me for a month and then be with someone else for a month. So when he would come back after the discard, he would come back. And then he would come back with the love bombing. And then he'd say things like, I'm so sorry. I just needed time away. I didn't want to burden you with my insecurities and my instability and I don't want to bring that to your life. I love you so much. You're amazing. And it's like you said, the dopamine. You want that feeling again because they love so hard. Right.
Yep. And they put you at such a low when they disappear. So it's almost like you're waiting for that uplift again. So it works every time until you catch on. But yeah.
Right. And you really do wait for it. You just want that feeling back. And I've never been a drug addict, right? But in my studies, I found that this was literally an addiction because, it took all my money. It took my looks. I couldn't eat. I couldn't sleep. And all I wanted was another fix from him. all I wanted was another fix. I'm like, I need to get this fix. I detached from my family. I wasn't being as good a parent as I could be. I wasn't concentrating at work. And that's what happens to drug addicts. But it's just, when we think drug addict, we think, substance abuse like alcohol or, prescription drugs or, things like that. We don't think of another human being as being an addiction, but he was very much so an addiction for me, where I didn't even know if I was coming or going. I lost myself. I just wanted that fix. I just wanted him to come back and love me, because it was the best feeling I had ever felt in my life. And again, when you come from a dysfunctional home, it's like, oh my God, I've never seen love like this. Also, really quickly, I want to add that they know what women are constantly not being told, right? You know how men are continuously saying, like, hey, I never want to get married, or I don't want any children, or I don't want commitment. Narcissists know that women are continuously hearing those things. So those are the things they use, right? And I'm going to get into all the other women that I've met that were dealing with him as well. But, they constantly, that's when we first were on that 16, 17-hour, phone call. He was like, I'd marry you today. You're worth it. I can't believe. And, he was getting a lot of intel from me during those 16, 17 hours. And I was an open book because he knew what to ask. And I realized now that he was custom fitting his con for me, because in the women I spoke to that have dealt with him, they all had a custom fit con, right, according to what resources they provided for him. So
they study.
Yeah,
they study people. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Absolutely. And he's asked. No, please interject if you have a question. So he was asking, what's your family life like? What's your dad? What's your relationship with your dad? What's up with your mom? What about your child? How about your ex? Are you talking to someone right now? Are you involved? What do you like for work? What's your favorite color? Literally, it's like, you know what I mean? It's like. And you're thinking, oh, my God, I've never met someone so interested in me. But he's taking notes on the other end is what he's doing.
Of course.
Right. So at the time, I was at the tail end of a relationship with someone else, right? And it was kind of like an ex who still kind of wanted to see me. And I was like over it. I was like, no, you don't want to commit. I don't want to just be playing house with someone. And I gave this narcissist that information. And he quickly jumped on it. And he was like, what? You're amazing. You know what? I'd marry you right now. Like, I'm not even playing. I was like, what are you talking about? He was like, I'd marry you right now. How dare he, have someone like you in his life and take it for granted? I want to marry you. I'm serious. And I was like, wow. So, he knew what I was lacking or what I was pining for, and he just filled it in. He just, came through with the spackle and filled the holes. He was like,
absolutely.
Look, I think, so, I was on and off with him. I even married this man. I did not know that he was rotating several women. And when I say several, I'm talking any time from 4 to 7 women at a time.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So I'm not talking, you have a girlfriend in New York and then you may see somebody in LA. I'm talking about literally 4 to 7 women, right? Which is another thing that's very, 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 very dangerous, because one of his main cons that he used to do with the other women, after I spoke to them and they were, thankfully they were amazing women who were willing to speak, and because they were trying to get closure as well as I was. Mm-hmm. So, we got into the ugly stuff, like, were you having unprotected sex? What was he saying? When did he disappear? And he was having unprotected sex with all of us, which is very, very, as you know, in this day and age, is dangerous.
Wow.
Like,
absolutely.
AIDS isn't the only thing out there. There are things you can't get rid of, like herpes, and so I knock on wood, and it's inexplicable that I've never, contracted anything, or I just don't understand how it never happened. I'm like, how is this man rotating 4 to 7 women, having unprotected sex, and I've never, contracted anything. I don't know how it happened, but I'm not questioning it. I knock on wood, and I kept, I kept it pushing, right?
Wow.
So, after we got married, it was after a discard, of course, right? After he had left me for like, I don't know, a couple weeks or a month or whatever. I hadn't heard from him. I was over it because there were pockets where I was like, I'm never speaking to you again. Like, leave me alone or whatever. And then he would go away and I guess try to shack up with whoever the other woman was. And then come back to me and, and vice versa. So he came back one day and he was like, listen, I've made the biggest mistake of my life. I can't live without you. I am so sorry. He got on his knee in my apartment, and he was like, I want to marry you. Please, let's do this right. Let's start over. Now, I did it reluctantly. That's another thing that you should never do. But I'm the type of person that I'm like, I've never been married before. Let's see what happens. Right? Or like, right. I've never had a tattoo before. Let's see what happens. I've never tried that dish. Let's see what happens, right? But that's not how you should go into marriage. Ladies and gentlemen, that's not how you should go into marriage. So,
True.
But again, I didn't have an example. I didn't have the example or the template growing up. Like, that's not, that wasn't common in my family, marriages and things like that. So I was like, hey, I'll wing it. What's the worst that can happen, right? So we went to, so there are little signs. I want to make sure that people know there are teeny little signs and red flags that we ignore, but they're hugely important. When we went down to, of course, there wasn't a huge wedding or anything like that. When we went down to get the paperwork done at City Hall, I had a huge issue with him because he had married who I thought were 2 other women. It turns out I'm his 5th wife. But
wow.
at that time, I thought it had only been 2 women. So I didn't like that those 2 women still had his last name. And I told him, listen, I'm not going to lie. I feel cheesy that, I'm taking your last. Can I just keep my maiden name? Because I feel cheesy taking your name, just on principle. And 2 other women still have your name. I feel tacky. I feel like, the clan of your wives. So,
yeah.
I was really upset, and he was like, I promise you I'm going to make them change it because there's no reason they should have my name. Yeah, you're absolutely right. You're my only wife, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, okay, cool. If you promise you're going to work on this, let's go through with it. Now, when we went to do the paperwork at City Hall, he tells me, hey, babe, and here's a red flag. Hey, babe, I know it really upsets you to even hear, these other women's names, so you can wait for me, in the waiting room. And, it's my first time being married, but at City Hall, they ask you questions at the window, and they're like, how many times have you been married, blah, 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 right? So had I stayed in that room with him, I would have heard the actual number of times he'd been married.
Oh,
but
wow.
He made it sound like, hey, I'm trying to save you from hearing this horrible stuff, so wait for me outside. And I, I agreed, right? Because I'm like, I don't want to hear this crap, and I waited. But had I stayed there, I would have known he was married 4 times over, right? So then we got married, and I wasn't ready to get married. He moved into my New York apartment because then in between us being on and off, he ended up homeless, of course. And then so we did the marriage thing, and then he ended up moving in with me. Now, I was like, really, really, I was a bag of nerves. Like, I was really like, what did I do? He doesn't have steady income. Now he's in my apartment. So I was like nitpicking. Like, what are you doing? Are you going to get up today and look for work? And, we can't live like this, and I have to pay my father some rent. I just can't have a man in my apartment. And, he was like, don't worry, I'm going to talk to your dad. And, no one talks to my dad. My dad is like strong, silent, don't bring me no BS. I talk to nobody. I don't like anyone. That's how my dad is. And I was like, no one talks to my dad. It's forbidden. You can't talk to my dad. And he was like,
right.
no, I'm going to talk to him. Just bring him upstairs. And I was like, okay, you're on your own, So then he spoke to my dad, and he was like, listen, I married your daughter, and I'm going to do the right thing, blah, blah. He gives my dad the whole spiel, right? And my dad is like, okay, yeah, whatever. But my dad told me, on another day, he was like, I don't trust that guy. Like, and I was like, why? He was like, he doesn't seem genuine to me, but you do what you want, with your life. And I was like, oh, wow, damn, okay. So,
wow.
Yeah, my dad told me that. And, we were living together. A week later, a week after the marriage, all hell breaks loose. Like, I freak out. Like, I really freak out. Like, I'm like, what are we doing? We got to pay the bills. Why are you just sitting there? Blah, blah. We get into, things are getting thrown in the apartment, and he leaves. He's like, I am leaving. But let me tell you how he leaves, right? We make up after the argument. Hey, I'm sorry. Okay, look, let's work things out. I love you. I love you too. We're going to be okay. He was like, okay, cool. And then blah, blah. He was like, so what are you doing today? I was like, I don't know. I'm going to run some errands with my daughter, blah, blah, blah. He was like, another thing, my daughter never liked him. That's another flag. Because kids are so innocent and they're such blank slates. So I think they're better at picking up when someone is a bad person.
They're very perceptive to energy. Exactly.
Very perceptive. Like, we adults think too much. We give people the benefit of the doubt, and we don't know what he's been through. Kids are just like, they're blank slate. So they're like, I don't like you. I don't like you.
I don't like how you feel.
Yeah. Right, exactly. I don't like how you feel.
Yeah.
And he poured it on thick with my daughter. I mean, thick, but she never took to him. She never took to him as thick as he tried to pour it on, right? So we had that huge argument, right? We make up. Everything's great. And he says, what are you doing today? And I'm like, well, I'm going to go run some errands. He was like, okay, cool. He kisses me on the forehead. I was like, okay, so I'll be back. I leave him in the apartment. I come back. Of course, everything is gone. Everything. Television, appliances. Yeah, everything is gone. Everything that he brought with him to the apartment, my stuff, of course, was there, but everything he brought to the apartment was gone, gone. And I had thrown away my old TV because we were going to buy a new one together as a married couple. So he took the TV. He took the cable boxes, and I walked into that with my daughter, and I was like, oh, shit. Like, how do I explain to her this is not what you're supposed to be putting up with, right?
Wow.
And then he completely disappeared. I called because now I'm desperate. I'm calling. I'm like, what happened? We're married. You can't just leave. Like, we're married. I have a ring on my finger. Like, we got to work this out somehow. This is crazy. How could you just leave like that? I thought everything was okay. Like, of course, he changed. Oh, he was a serial, phone number changer. Like, he would change his phone number, every month or so. And I'm not exaggerating. Like, I lost count of emails and phone numbers that he's changed. But then I found out later again, that's what he does to avoid women that he's dealing with when they try to chase him down for whatever he took from them. He just changes his address, his phone number, and his email.
Oh my God.
So I would call him, and it would be like, the number you have reached is disconnected. And I was like, oh, my God. So then that sends you spiraling because you're like, I can't reach him. I can't apologize. I can't fix this. Is he with another woman? Is he, So he finally reaches out. And he's like, hey, what's up, or whatever, giving me the, what's up, you did this, so what do you want? And I'm like, let's work this out. We're married. Like, we're married. Like, this is real. Like, we're married. Like, you can't just, and he's like, well, no, I don't want to get back with you, blah, blah. And I was like, but we're married. What do you want to do? You want to get a divorce? A week later? And it turns out that week that he was gone, he had actually flown out of New York into L.A. and was trying to stay with two different women.
Oh, my
I found
God.
that out. Yeah, I found that out after. And this was immediately after we got married a week later. How do I know? Because one of the women contacted me on Facebook, and the other woman, I had got into his voicemail, and I heard her saying, I love you, and, you know, I can't wait to see you, and blah, blah, blah. So I responded to the woman on Facebook, and I also called the woman that I heard on the voicemail. And she was like, the one on the voicemail was like, what? Like, he's out here with me. He wants to stay with me. He's saying that he wants me to have his child. He's saying that you're crazy, that, you know, X, Y, and Z. And then the other woman on Facebook was like, wait a minute, he came out here with me, like his stuff is still here. What am I supposed to do with it? And then she admitted later that she was drunk, and she apologized for reaching out to me in that fashion. But I was like, look, we're all kind of like, we don't know what's going on. So then that mess happened. And again, this is 11 years of this continuously happening.
Wow.
It's happening over and over again. And he would always come back. But remember, at that point, I'm already an addict. So a full-blown addict. So even though, like, people that are addicted to substances, even though they have those good months or those good 6 months or those good 3 weeks, if they're in their environment again of that drug and they don't rehab and they're not getting therapy, you fall right back in because you want that fix. You want that love bombing. You want that guy who's going to put your coat on and cut your steak. And let's be clear, this is how that man operated when he was love bombing. Like, I would get the flowers and he would make me pancakes, and I would wake up in the morning and there was a fruit bowl ready for me, and he would run my bath water, right? So this is how he operated, right? So it's not like he was punching me in the head or being physically abusive. None of that was going on. And I just wanted the fix of, oh, my God, no one's ever treated me like this. No one's ever shown me this attention, so how could I not let it back in my life? Right?
It's that insidious cycle of abuse. It goes from one extreme to the other. So not only does that create an imbalance in your own brain, literally chemically, right? So they're actually, they have a personality disorder, but they actually give you a chemical imbalance in your own brain because you go from the abuse to feeling so distraught to the love bombing stage, where it's like, oh, wow, I feel okay again. And that's an addictive cycle. Exactly.
And you feel very much okay because it's so, the love bombing is so grandiose. I mean, he's like, let's go skating. Let's go to the park. Let's go bird watching. Let's go. And you're like, oh, my God, and you're in this world, we're in a romance, and it's Disney. It's the Disney prince coming back to save you over and over and over again. And then he just disappears. And then, you know, as time went on, I started getting more and more curious about things. And I came across an article about psychopaths. And I was just, you know, I like to read. So I was like, oh, let me, and the article was like, is the person you're involved with, can you check any of these things on this list? So I was reading and I was like, oh, my God, yeah, 1, 2, 3. And I'm just checking all the things on the list, and I'm like, oh, my God, I'm dating a psychopath. I married a psychopath. This is crazy. Wow. So then that's when kind of like the light bulb started, at least a little bit, you know what I mean, flickering, like about to turn on, where that scared me when I saw the characteristics of a psychopath, where they have absolutely, like, like they have no feeling at all for something that's injured or hurting, or they have no empathy or sympathy, nothing. They're like, that started to scare me because I was like, what if something happens to me one day? Like, is this dude going to try to kill me and make it look like an accident? And, you know, so, you know, that started to scare me, you know, but, you know, yeah, drugs scare people, right? But they still do them. So,
well, I'll just,
you know,
just to interject quickly, and I don't want to interrupt your story too much, but it's true because with narcissists, sociopaths, and psychopaths, there's overlap. So at first, you finding out about the psychopath traits, there's overlap between narcissists and sociopaths. So yeah, I'm not surprised. So did that trigger you beginning to research about those personality disorders?
Yes, very, very much so. And like you said, because there's overlap, you know, psychopathy takes you into narcissism and other personality disorders. So when I discovered narcissistic personality disorder, then he checked every box, like every single box, from like how he treats me and everything. Like psychopathy was just like, okay, this is like what the crazy guys do, right? But then narcissistic personality disorder broke down exactly everything that he's ever done to me, said to me, shown me, every single thing. Right. So I was like, okay, I'm not dealing with just, a guy who tends to be an asshole. This dude is mentally ill. This is something else now. Yeah. So I just became obsessed with the YouTube videos and the books. I bought Should I Stay or Should I Go? Surviving a Relationship with a Narcissist by Ramani Durvasula. I bought The Narcissist Next Door, and I just became obsessed with studying. You know what I mean? Like, what is this? What is this? What is this? So, in telling my story to people, they were like, my goodness, Jen, and you've spoken to these women? And I'm like, yeah. And people kept telling me, Jen, there's a story there. There's a story there. So I was like, you know what? There probably is a story there that can help other women, because until we all talking to each other, we didn't know what it was. Like, I started connecting with these women, and then I made an Instagram post one day, and I said, I know women. Women are very intuitive, and we're like detectives, right? We're better than the FBI sometimes.
Definitely.
So I said, if someone is watching me or watching my page that's connected to him, right, they're going to see this post. So I made a post. It looked like a random post, right? But I made a post, and I was writing in my iPad, and I took a picture, and I posted. I was like, hey, ladies, if you're out there and you've ever dealt with a narcissist, right, I'm working on a project. Please, by all means, contact me. I'd love to hear your story. And I totally threw that out there to see if someone who's connected to him would contact me, and they did.
Oh, wow. The bait was taken.
Yes. There was a woman who had been watching my page, and she started out at first, hey, can I get your email so I can tell you about my story? I said, sure, absolutely, great, I'd love to hear it. She sent me the email. It was like pages and pages and pages. So afterwards, I wrote her back, and I said, Kim, I was like, you know who I am, don't you? And then it was like, I waited for the email to come back, and then she was like, yes, Jen, I know who you are. We're dealing with the same guy. And I was like, wow. I was like, wow. And she was like, I'm not going to lie. I'll tell you the truth. I saw your name on some of his paperwork, and I went to social media to see who you were. I was like, wow. So,
oh, my God.
Her and I became fast friends. And that's when we started doing the, cross-referencing the dates. Wait a minute. So he was with you. What date? Oh, and I was like, no, that's the date he told me his daughter was sick. And then same thing on her end. I was like, no. He was here on Halloween. We bought Halloween candy. And she was like, oh, my God, he told me that he had to leave, and he's a recording artist. He's a recording artist. He's in the music business. So he was able to use his career as a disguise. Like, look, I have to travel. I have to teach people. I have to coach people on their harmonies. And I'm in the studio here. And when a musician's in the studio, they can't talk to you. They're in their 12, sometimes all day, all night. So the excuse is, I can't talk to you. I'm recording. I'm in a studio. I can't, drop everything and talk to you. So he had a very good
cover.
Disguise. Yeah, he had a very good cover, cover. Because it's like, I'm not going to bother you at work. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So,
right.
Her and I started comparing notes. And, we realized we were dealing with the same maniac. And then she was like, I know of someone else. And I was like, who do you know of? She was like, well, I Googled his name, and he's on a baby registry. I said, what? She was like, yeah, he's on a baby registry with another woman. She was like, now, I don't dare reach out to her because she's pregnant and I don't know what to do. I said, well, you know what? I'll reach out to her. So she gave me her information, and then I reached out to that woman. And then she had the same story. She was like, we're not together. I am fighting for child support. He's an absolute maniac. He cleaned me out. I'm bankrupt. I'm out hundreds of thousands of dollars. You know, so I was like, oh, my God, I'm so sorry to hear this. Let me tell you everything I know. And then you tell me everything you know. So now I have Kim. I have the new woman. So now we're all, like, talking to each other. Like, oh, my God, I can't believe this. So, wait, what date were you there? And that's how I found out he was rotating 4 to 5 to 7 women at a time, at the same time. So it's not like he'd break up with you and then start a new relationship. No. He was rotating women because we all, like, we had notes. So, wait, you were there March 25th? And she was like, yeah, I was in town for business, and I stayed with him from March 25th to March 27th. I said, but he came to pick me up March 28th. And then, you know, the first woman that contacted me was like, wait a minute, but I was there April for 2 weeks. And I was like, you're kidding me. So he was literally rotating us.
Unreal.
And this is just yes, and these are just the women that found out about each other. Who knows what other women are really involved? Who knows how many there are? Mm-hmm. You know? So, and then the one that just had his child, she was telling me that one time she was over at his apartment and a woman pulls up in a car, bawling, crying, asking him for her credit cards back. I said, are you kidding me? She said, no, I was sitting in the car, pregnant, very pregnant, and a woman pulls up in a car screaming, crying that she wants her credit cards back. And he tells her, well, you can have your credit cards back because I'm with my new family now. I'm starting a new family. Right? And this is all happening. Both women are seeing each other. So the woman grabs her credit card, gets in the car, pulls away. So I asked Pat, the pregnant woman, was that not enough to make you like, this dude is crazy? Like, how can he explain this away? How can he explain a woman pulling up, crying, saying, give me back my credit card? How can you explain that away? Right? I've never had anything that in my
extreme.
Face.
Yeah.
That extreme. Like, he always had a way. Because I lived in New York and he was always in LA or Paris, and this guy gets around. So this is worldwide with women. This isn't just, you know, limited to the U.S. He spends time in Paris. He spends time in London. You know what I mean? He gets out there. So I said, you know, when you saw that, and she said to me, and I understand, she said, Jen, I'm 9 months pregnant. I'm invested financially. She said, I just ignored it. I've never been pregnant before. Here I am, 40 years old and pregnant. I'm thinking I have to somehow try to make this work. I don't know what to do. And he explained it away, saying that he used to date that woman and she's crazy and she happened to leave her credit cards there.
They always
was just giving them.
Yeah, they always say that all the exes are crazy, all the women are crazy. That's the go-to.
Yes. Yeah, that's the go-to because it's so easy to explain away, right? Because it's like, oh yeah, women are crazy, right? Yep. So she said that's why she stayed. She was like, I didn't know what to do. I'm 9 months pregnant. I didn't know what to do. So, you know, in between them, and then there was the other one who contacted me on Facebook, and then there was another woman, Susan, who she's the sweetest thing ever, and she had contacted me early on in my relationship, but, you know, again, he was like, that's my ex. She shouldn't be calling you. And unfortunately for me, she didn't get into great detail. She just said, hey, listen, she contacted me on Facebook as well, right? And it's harder for these narcissists with social media, but let me tell you how he fixed that. Right? So
yeah, you're right.
He has a remedy for that as well. So there was another woman named Susan who contacted me on Facebook, and she was like, hey, listen, I am not trying to interrupt your marriage in any way, shape, or form. I'm not trying to disrespect you, but, you know, he owes me $90,000. Is there any way that you can maybe talk to him? Yes, $90,000. That was the amount that she gave me. I still have the email, the inbox. She said, you know, I'm out $90,000. He knows I am. She said, I'm willing to take even $5 a week. She was like, something, anything. So can you talk to him? And I was like, I'm not. I'm like, if you're his ex, like, what do you want me to do about that? I can't fix what went wrong in your relationship. I don't know what to do with that information. I'm sure as hell going to tell him you contacted me, but I can't force this man, you know, to give you money. So when I confronted him with it, of course, she was crazy as well. And, you know, they spent money together, and that wasn't all her money. And, you know, they were only together for a year, and she was only with me because of the business I'm in and blah, blah, blah. And it's like, oh, okay. Well, yeah, I guess women are crazy. All right. You know, and then you just you go on and on and on with that. But it's funny because every woman I met knows about one or two other women. And that's why I say, who knows how many women this man is rotating. I mean, I saw a woman from where was she from? I forgot what country she was from, but she was from another country. Now, the one that was pregnant, she investigated him thoroughly for child support court, and what she did was she was like, hey, with the money I have left, I'd love to fly you in. I'd love to fly Susan in, and I'd love to fly Kim in to help me with this child support case just to show how unstable this man is. And I said, I am there, but
wow,
can you do me a favor? And she was like, anything. And I said, I am going to put these stories together. Are you willing to let me interview you? And she was like, yes. She was like, but I'd like, yeah, she was like, but I'd like to remain anonymous. Is that okay? I said, you can remain anonymous because I'm not trying to put anybody in any danger. I said, you can remain anonymous. I just need the story. So I flew down to Atlanta. I showed up in court. Susan couldn't make it, but Kim was there. So it was like, you know, the exes club, right? Now, unfortunately for Pat and for us, we didn't even get to testify because my ex started crying on the stand. He started crying on the stand, and the judge said, all right, that's it. I don't need to hear anymore. I'm just going to blah, blah, blah. And we were all sitting there like, you're not going to let us testify? We flew all this way. Like, I was livid. I was livid because, you know, Pat, the baby that she had with him is very, very ill. He has, like, the highest, you know, stage of epilepsy. It's really bad. He's not developing properly. So she needs a certain amount of money, and she needed to prove that my ex is not safe to leave a child with, and an epileptic child at that. And I agreed with her 100%. I was like, listen, I will go down there and fight for you because I don't trust this man with your child. Like, he's the type that will walk away and say, oh, I didn't see him having a seizure, because he doesn't want to pay child support. Right? He wants to take money from women. And that's what he was doing. Right. And this is his glitch, that he's always trying really hard to get women pregnant. Like, trying really hard.
What?
So,
why?
Yes. And I know that for a fact because Kim, the first woman that contacted me, was pregnant twice in a year. But she terminated the pregnancy. So he tries very hard. Say again?
Okay. Oh, no, I was just going to ask you. So what I find with a lot of narcissistic types is that there's no type. They don't have a type. It's like they're all totally, completely different from one another. They don't have a type, and it's almost clear that it's like whatever they can get from that person at the time, whatever supply they can get. You know what I mean? Like, they're all so different. But
yes. And I mean, when we were in court and we're looking at each other, we're so different. I mean, physically, emotionally, tax bracket, like, we are so different, but we all had something that he wanted. Because narcissists, there are two ways that narcissists view another human being, and that is Can you supply me with something, or are you in the way of that person? Or are you in my way from that supply? Are you in the way of that supply? That's how they look at you. You're either a supply or you're in the way of that supply, and I have to get rid of you. That's how they look at people. It's just two gears. Can you be my supply, or is this person going to be in the way of you being my supply? That's how they look at people. That's how they function. It's their day in and day out. Their day in and day out.
And they'll choose some supply based on emotion, what they can get emotionally from that person. Another person could be a financial. Another person could be both. Another person might pump up their ego, and they need that. So they'll rotate women because based on their need at that moment. So if they have a fight with you over money, they're going to go to the next woman for emotional support. And then when they have a fight with that woman and they're not getting the emotional support that they need, or they feel down because of that fight and they were told in their face what's up, they'll go to the next woman who pumps up their ego, says, no, you're amazing. Like, you should never be treated like that. And that's the rotation.
Right. And that's exactly what it was. And I know that, as well as providing him a home, I was like, I was such a huge ego supply for him, such a huge ego supply. Like, I was always, praising him. And you're so good at, singing, and no one, oh my God, and you invented the blah, blah, 5-part harmony. And I was continuously telling him how amazing he was. So, I was like, hey, let me get back over there. Throughout the years, say again, go ahead.
Oh, no, I was just saying yes, but also you were a supply on so many levels, which is one of the reasons why I think it lasted for so long, that he kept you around for 11 years, right?
Yes, and that is something I noticed with the other women. They all had the same pattern of they were only with him within a year, like 10 months to a year. And I was like, wow, like in 10 months to a year, you got pregnant twice. The other one actually got pregnant and had the baby. So he works really quickly, but for some reason he kept coming back to me, which leads me to believe I had a huge supply for him because they work quickly. They take whatever, and even with Susan, the $90,000, that happened within a year. And I was like, within a year, and I was like, of course, curiosity. I was like, how did he manage 90? She was like, he put a car, he got a car, her credit cards. He would take his kids out with her credit card. So he runs up a bill really quickly. But the pattern I noticed with the women was about 10 months to a year, and then he'd be done with them. So, I was the one that is like, I kept supplying him and supplying him and supplying him. So he was like, well, let me keep going back over there. And when you're in it and you're addicted, you start trying to rationalize, and you're like, well, he keeps coming back to me because he loves me. I'm the one he loves the most. You see, he only stayed with you a year. He got you pregnant. He didn't even stay. I don't have any children with him, and he keeps coming back here. So he must love me. That's love. That's before you research and find out that this is a personality disorder. That's how I was rationalizing it. If he didn't love me, he wouldn't keep coming back for 11 years. But it was the opposite. I was just the best supply. So,
and they say that the narcissist's worst nightmare is an educated empath, and that's literally how it is.
That is what I am. It was terrible.
You learn.
If you listen, they tell on themselves. But that's why I wanted to do this podcast, because women have to know what to look for. If you listen, they tell you, they actually reveal what you're supplying them with, and in casual conversation. And so he would tell me things like, my God, you're so smart. You're so resourceful. Like, you say you're going to do something, and then it actually happens. Like, you said you were going to shoot a pilot or a music video, and you actually got people together. Like, I wish I could do that. Like, how is it that you do that? Like, I can't freaking believe that you do that. So it's like, and then eventually he started asking me, can you write me a script? Can you shoot my video? Can you do, so I'm dressing him a certain way, and I'm changing his walk and talk, and I'm telling him when you go in a meeting, you have to address men this way, and you have to do this and that and the third. So here I am building this monster unbeknownst to me. It was literally like Frankenstein.
Yep.
So I'm building this monster, and I'm giving him more tools to be worse of a monster. And he ran with it. He completely, totally ran with it. He ran with it, and it was just, he started collecting more women as he went along. So, circling back to the interview that Pat, allowed me to do, I asked him the same thing. Would you let me interview you? I've yet to interview Susan, but she's on board as well. So I'm just trying to find as many women as possible because I want to show, this isn't like Surviving R. Kelly, where it's like a bunch of really young, impressionable girls who don't know any better. These are grown women who are intelligent, who have families, who have businesses, who are okay on their own. And I want to show that anyone can get got. Like,
definitely.
Listen, I pride myself, and Pat is an attorney. I'm in the film industry, and I'm from New York. I pride myself in seeing a hustle coming from across the street, and he got me hook, line, and sinker. Like, he wrapped me up so bad, like I didn't even know I was addicted, and I lost everything. Just like the other women, and Kim specifically, I was asking her, the first woman that ever contacted me on social media. I asked her specifically, what was he trying to get from you? And she was like, oh, well, I had just opened up a family nail salon, and he was insisting that him and I should be together and that we should travel the world, and that, my nail salon will pay the bills, all our bills. And as long as him and I are traveling, like, we'll be fine. I said, okay, so he knew that, you own the business or whatever. So I was just trying to get from the women, like, what is it, that he wanted from you or he was taking from you. But he's very, he's been doing this 20 years plus. And I want to expose him. I want other women to come out. When I first started this, it was like a vendetta. Like, I was like, oh, you messed with the wrong one. I am a filmmaker. I will put you on TV, right? So it was a vendetta. I was like, you're going to pay. But the more I spoke to the women, I said, oh, my God. I said, it morphed into, like, women need this story. This is beyond him now because these people, it's like they're a dime a dozen, but they leave so much hurt and loss and tragedy behind them. Some women don't recover from losing hundreds of thousands of dollars, losing their family, losing their children.
And the mental imbalance that is created as well. Like, it's torture. It takes a long time to recover.
Yes, I'm still recovering. And I wanted to. So it went from an act of vengeance to no. This is going to be healing, and this is going to help a lot of women. And I want to show that you can be resilient. You can recover even after losing everything, because some people hit rock bottom and they don't know how to get out. And I noticed with all the women I spoke to, they were at their worst, rock bottom. I mean, you have two terminations of pregnancy. You have a woman that now has an epileptic child, her first child ever. She decided to have a child at 40, and she had it with this guy. You know what I mean? So, interestingly enough, today, present day. Let's go present day. Right now, he is in a relationship with the woman that ran up crying to get her credit card. That is his girlfriend right now, his main girlfriend.
Wow.
That woman. Now, what Pat and I did was we reached out to that woman, and we was like, hey, listen, this is going to sound crazy, blah, 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 X, Y, and Z. He's going to do this. He's that type of person. He was with us at the same time. He was rotating it, and she would not have it. She would not hear any parts of it at all. She was like, you all are crazy. Leave us alone. I love him. I don't care what you say. You're all trying to attack him. So going back to social media, what he did was he's very adamant about, some people may or may not like him, and they always throwing dirt on his name. So he will not connect with you on social media. Therefore, he has an excuse for why he's not going to post your picture. He's not going to say that he's in a relationship, and she's abiding by that. So when we contacted her, she was like, he told me you women would do this. He told me this, So there's no getting through to her. And she still posts, and she doesn't post pictures of him, but she tries to post like subliminals, like she'll post his elbow or she'll post his shoe. And she'll be like, yeah, so happy in love. And it's because, your natural way when you're in love is to show this person. But she can't because he forbids it. He absolutely forbids it. But she's neck deep. Like there's no, he'd have to clean her out like he did the rest of us, and maybe not even then, but she's in. Like she would have to get herself out, just like drug addiction. You can tell somebody, please stop smoking, please stop drinking, please stop doing cocaine, but they have to want to do that. No matter how many times you drive them up to the rehab and deliver them, like they really have to want to see it. And we tried to reach out. I mean, I sent this woman a soliloquy. Please, watch your children, your money. He's going to tell you X, Y, and Z. And it's funny because I told her, I said, I noticed that you work for an airline. He asked you to do that, did he not?
Oh.
And she didn't reply. Now, here's how I knew that. And I thought that would light the light bulb over her head. Like, how would she know that about me? The reason why I know is because my ex likes to be worldwide. And when I was with him, right, despite me having my own career and being very happy, in the entertainment business, he kept stressing to me, you really should get a job at the airline. Think about it. If you get a job at the airline, I'll have a buddy pass, and you and I can travel all over the world together. Think about that, Jen. And I'm like, I don't want to work for a damn airline. I want to do what I'm doing. But he was like, well, you can't be selfish because, I'm in the music business and I'm trying to climb my way back up. You know what I mean? I was at rock bottom and I'm trying to climb my way back up. And if I have a buddy pass, it'd just be easier for me to get around and go to London and go to Paris and do this music, fly to Atlanta and fly. I was like, I understand and I even love you back, but I do not want to work for an airline.
And so your choices didn't benefit him.
Right, exactly. So he had to go on and find someone else that would work for an airline. Because when he first met that woman, when she came crying for her credit cards, she was actually, and this was her supply, she was actually an apartment, what do you call it? Like an apartment manager. And she would, help people get into apartments. And he's the type that he moves from place to place to place often. Like it's like almost like he's running from the feds. He's continuously moving. So she's the woman that can move him around very easily, right? All he has to do is sleep with her and tell her she's the most beautiful thing in the world. And she's like, oh, my God, I've never experienced anything like this. So I noticed that was her job when she met him. Now she works for the airline. Surprise, surprise. So she posts her pictures, and she's like, look, I'm at the airport in her little uniform or whatever. And I was like, he got her. He got her. That's what he wanted. And then she'll post stuff like, oh, my God, he wants me to come home, but I can't because I'm in this state or that state. And I'm looking at this like, he doesn't want you to come home, doll. He's glad you are where you are. And this is me thinking to myself, but there is no explaining that to her. Like, she has to see that. And from what I see, she's in deep. She's like, together 4 years. I'm like, no, he was rotating all of us those 4 years. But she's, it's denial. It's a drug addiction. You're in denial. So we tried to reach out. We tried to warn her. And it's interesting. I signed off my letter to her. I said, listen, right now I'm making no sense. You don't want to hear from me. But I'm going to leave you with this note. And this is what I wrote verbatim. I said, there's going to come a time where you're going to need so bad for this to make sense. And this letter is going to be the only thing that gets you through that. So I wish you well. I hope you come out of this okay. Sincerely, Jen. and I left it at that because I have this theory. My life's motto is be who you needed. Be who you needed when you really needed somebody. And I didn't have anybody. I didn't have anybody to explain to me, this is crazy. This is this disorder. He's doing the discard. He has flying monkeys. There are people going to be against you. He's going to, love bomb. I didn't know what those terms were. So I'm like, now if I can help someone else, I left her with that letter. Because when you're at rock bottom and you feel crazy, you just want someone to say, hey, I know what this is, and this is what it is. You're not crazy.
Totally. Totally.
Yes, I left her with that letter because there's going to come a time where she's going to go to her Facebook and she's going to open up that letter if she hasn't already, and she's going to see, like, how did she know I was working for an airline? How did she know that he asked me to work for an airline? How did she know about this, that? How did she know that I went crying to get my credit cards? How does you know what I mean? So it's like, but she has to want to, and I truly, I wish her well.
Also, when you were telling me this, the thought that came to my mind was, she'll be back, meaning she's going to contact you at some point. I feel, she's already came crying about, she came crying about her credit cards in the past. So it's not like she doesn't know. She might be able to ignore it for a certain amount of time. Unfortunately, there are people who stay in it forever. But most of them don't. Most of them do wake up, and she's probably going to need your support at some point. I had a family member say something to me exactly about what you were saying about the addiction part of it, how it's a drug addiction. We were actually talking about somebody who was addicted to heroin, this family member and I. And then when I wanted to go back to the person who was narcissistic, they said to me, going back for another hit, how are you any different? And I was like, oh, my God, you're right.
Wow.
You're right. And that was like you were saying with the light bulb thing. It's like I already knew what was going on at that point, but I was still getting sucked back in. But that was like the altering moment of, oh shit, I'm an addict. I'm an addict too.
Right.
So I related to everything you were saying when you were describing that, and that's exactly what it's like.
Right. And then so now I have that going on. I'm still working on that project. I still have a couple more interviews and some editing to do, but the project is going to be made. It is going to be made, and I will name him. I came very close with VH1, but VH1 we were in talks back and forth for a couple months, but then they wanted to take the story away that they wanted to go a direction I didn't want to go. Right? They wanted it to be very confrontational and controversial, and they wanted me to confront him. Reality show. And I was like, yeah, that's not what I want to do with this. Like, this is too important to me. It's too important. Like, this is serious for me. Like, this almost killed me. Like, I wanted to die, okay, just to end the pain. So I can't turn this into a reality show circus. I don't have anything against reality shows, but this isn't that. And I can't go there with that. Like, you want to work on another project and throw drinks, across the room? Great. But I can't do that with this. This is life or death. This is the life or death of women worldwide. I can't just play around with it. So we parted ways, but I have other people interested, other producers and such, and investors. So, I walked away, no hard feelings. I'm like, I know what I want to do with this. I know what it can do. So I'm not going to sell myself short. I'm not going to do it.
I think that's amazing. It's deep for you. It's very, very deep, and also you're trying to change the narrative and teach and educate other women on the red flags and, obviously the mental anguish that it caused you. And it can literally make you want to die, like you said. So, I can understand why you made that decision, and I think that's amazing. So you got to stick to what feels right for you.
Absolutely. And I look at Pat specifically. and I feel the worst for her. And I feel the worst for her because I don't know about the other unknown women. Maybe there are other women that are 10 times worse, that he left 10 times worse than Pat, right? Maybe. But I have knowledge of Pat, and the reason why I feel so horrible for her is because when he met her, she was an attorney, right? She lost her job, right, with her firm. She lost her job. Now she has a child who's handicapped, who's at the verge of possible death every seizure, who is not developing well. She's 40 years old. She's never been married. It was her first relationship where she decided, okay, I'm going to have a child. She had to leave her home. She's out. She went bankrupt, hundreds of thousands of dollars gone, right? And she had to move from Atlanta, where she was living very nicely. She had to move from Atlanta to Florida, and she moved in with her sister. So now she is a single mother with a handicapped child and no money, no income, except for fighting for child support. So this is what these men are capable of, and this is why I have to put this documentary together, because he took a woman that had, a very beautiful life, a smart woman, an attractive woman, a woman who had it all together, and he took her and diminished her to a single mother shacking up with her sister in another state. Wow. And that, to me, is mind-blowing. But drugs do that as well. So going back to that your life could be perfect. You know what I mean? And it's just, they want you away from everybody. She was telling me her mother was dying. She'll never forget. Her mother was dying during their relationship, during that year, and he kept making her feel bad for sitting in the hospital with her dying mother. So this is how cold these people are. And she was like, I'll never forget. While I was losing my mother, he was making me feel guilty about being there with my dying mother. And that is how cold and callous these people are. They have no feelings other than, what can you do for me? Yeah, like, your mother dying is wasting my time. You know what I mean? It's like she's wasting my time. She's not dead yet. Like, I got things to do.
It's an interference with his goal.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And it's funny because, I sent her one time a YouTube video that, he uses the let me get you pregnant, let me get you pregnant, let me get you pregnant line, because it's so, oh, my God, you want to have a baby with me? It's so romantic, right? He uses that, but once the child is here, narcissists hate their children because they're little beings that take attention away from them. Mm-hmm. So I was telling her, be careful with that, and I sent her a video, and she thanked me. She was like, Jen, I got through this because of you. If it wasn't for these conversations with you, I don't know what I would have done with my life. And I was like, listen, I am here if you need to call me or whatever. I mean, come on, I'm like the vet here, 11 years, right?
Yeah, for real, you are.
I'm the combat vet here. So I was like, listen, so we have this strange sisterhood now, and I'm just I another message I want to send is that women usually go against each other rather quickly, right? But I'm grateful that I got to speak to women who are mature and were like, okay, no, you're not the enemy because you have the same story I have. So, I was lucky in that way. Now, was it always that way? No. I've run into some women that were like, don't, X, Y, and Z, and I don't care, and blah, blah, and ha-ha, he don't want you, blah, blah, and then they ended up in their own misery. So that's not always going to be the case. Some women don't want to hear it.
I made a post about that recently, and I said, I don't blame any other women because I know that they were manipulated just the way I was. And who knows what lies they were fed and what they, so you can't really blame them because how you were manipulated, and we know that we're intelligent or successful or, we would never think that there's something like that would happen to us. So, of course, another woman can be just as manipulated as we were. And I feel bad for them, too. But like you said, some of them put the guard up and want to hate on other women. And it's like, no, we're actually in the same position, but you need to wake up and see that before we can have a conversation.
Right. So, luckily I never got pregnant. Woohoo! You know what I mean? I never got pregnant. So that and it wasn't for lack of trying, because he was running the same line to me. I want you to have my son. That's his favorite line with all the women. I want you to have my son. Every woman that I've spoken to that has dealt with him has told me that line. I'm like, yeah, that's his line. He wants to have a son with everybody. So fast forward present, I did the final discard. After I got my mojo back, I got my strength back, I got my mind back, I was like, he was still trying to be with me on and off. And I said, hey, listen, what are you doing next week? He was like, well, it's your birthday. I want to take you out to dinner. And at that point, we weren't like in a relationship, but we were still in each other's lives to the point of, like I said, he wanted me to work with him, like shoot his music videos or do his photo shoots and things like that, because my network, I know a lot of people that can do, freebies on, via me, like, all right, Jen, I'll look out for you. If you say this guy is worth the photo shoot, I'll show up. I had that type of network, and he knew that. So, he was holding on to me still, even though the relationship had fizzled. He was still holding on to me, and I was like, yeah, okay. So then what I did was, I was like, I'm just, this guy's making a lot of money now. Like, I got him on his feet. He's making a lot of money. So I do kind of want to stick around to see if I can recoup some of that some way, somehow, even if it's working with this asshole.
Sorry,
right?
We have 90 seconds before we get cut off. I just wanted to give you the heads up.
Okay, so I just wanted to say that I am happy and healthy, and I did the final discard, and he flipped out, and I never saw him again. I gave him an ultimatum, like, you're going to pay me back for X, Y, and Z. He didn't, and I said, I'll never see you again. And that's it, and here we are.
You. I'm so grateful and happy that you're on this show today. This was one of my favorite episodes ever. Thank you for sharing your story, Jen. Check out Jen's show. It's called The Hit Show. She's the host, and she's a comedic actress on it. But thanks again, Jen, and we'll be in touch soon, and we should definitely do another episode.
Thank you so much. Take care.
You too. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you for joining us today on A Billion Realities. Please stay tuned for next Wednesday's show at 3 p.m. Pacific Standard Time or 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Take care, everyone.